Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Hello, Sixers, and welcome to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. This is episode 148. Today is November 6th, 2023. I'm Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by my allegorical co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
I'm surviving.
Meanwhile,
over here. Just gonna work through this.
Jordan trying to survive as he aspirates half of a glass of water. But
while that came from, holy cow!
While he's hacking up along in the corner, though, before we get started, we do want to remind you that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means that if there is something in the Cosmere that you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might just want to go read those first, then come back and join the discussion. Tonight, specifically, we are talking about another of Hoid's stories, The Girl Who Looked Up. For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you that it's possible for listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. We record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part of the discussion. We would love to have you here. We love seeing you chatting in the chat box. A lot of times you'll bring up some great points that help guide the discussion. So yeah, we'd just love for you to join us. The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show will, of course, continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, you can head over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even pledging $1 or $2 per episode really helps us out as we work to continue to improve the show. Patrons will get immediate access to our Discord server where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere with other listeners. It's a great community. We've got some great discussions over there. It's not a huge community, but the people we have are high quality. We love having them, and so there's some really good conversation.
You also get early to community ratio is insane.
Indeed. You also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. This week, we want to thank our newest patrons, Eric R. and just Carl.
Thank you.
Wait, is the name just Carl or is
No, the name is Carl.
Okay, just I wanted to be sure.
Yes. Which is the name of the giant in one of my favorite movies of all time, Big Fish. So I can support that. So how y'all been?
I'm good. Halloween
was
was
fine
passed,
until I
so
was
don't
hacking
have
up
to
a
worry
lung
about that.
right at the start.
Sanka, you dead?
Come on.
No, and all my
Man.
dice are ready, so that's good. So I have less stress about Dragonsteel. Now I just need to do my costume. So,
Well, I know that Jordan has been doing pretty well for the past week or so.
Yeah, Texas Rangers won the World Series. Life is good.
You've been waiting for that for a long time.
Let me see. Check my watch. 38 years. Okay, yeah.
And that just so people are aware, that's his entire life, because it's been even longer than that since
Yeah.
they've been going for it. So
Yeah, they were in Texas for over 50 years. Never won the
Hmm.
World Series. They won. I cried, and I'm definitely secure enough to admit it. I had
Jordan
a
does have
good
a soul.
sports cry.
Nice. I am getting ready to make some more wonderful food on the smoker. I am actually going to be cooking for my team at work.
Ooh.
So fortunately, work is going to pick up the bill, but I picked up a tri-tip. I picked up a tri-tip and a steelhead fillet that I'm going to smoke for.
What is a steelhead?
is that
It's a kind of trout.
Never heard of it.
It looks like salmon. In fact, I thought it was salmon when I bought it, but it's a kind of trout.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, I'm really excited. We're going to have some good food. but I'm
This
starting
moment of
to
you feeling hungry brought to you by Bill's Smoker.
No, I'm starting to get stressed just because November and December are always crazy. Plus, we got something big coming up in 2 weeks.
What's that?
Yes.
2 weeks.
What?
Dragonsteel.
Oh, right. That's a thing.
Did you really forget, or was that a bit?
No.
Oh, explain the bit. I made it better. So,
Oh man.
all right. Well, yeah, and we'll have more to talk about that in just a bit. First, though, announcements. How are we doing on our push to 3,000 hours?
You ask an excellent question.
Are you prepared for this?
I spent time preparing for everything else.
You are not prepared.
I may have forgotten to do that very important.
No worries.
bit.
No worries.
That's
We
okay.
can
Everyone's
talk about
hearing.
other stuff.
Oh no, we're almost there.
Oh, okay.
I just got a 2480 divided by 3,000. We are 82.666666 repeating, of course, on our percentage that we need to get to 3,000 watch hours, in which we then can do super chats and stuff like that. And we are at 800, and the last I checked, 819 current subscribers. We're trying to get to 1,000 on that.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
So yeah, if you haven't subbed to us yet over on YouTube, please do so. And you can join us live whenever we stream, which people in chat will confirm to you is awesome. Chat, back me up.
Yep.
And more importantly, getting us closer to our goal. It'll be wonderful.
Awesome. Also, just as we mentioned, 2 weeks we will be at Dragonsteel. So if you're going to be at the convention, make sure to come by the booth, say hi. We've got some plans for stuff going on. Amy, do you want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Oh,
I
yes.
know that you've you've been working on some.
I should have brought them over.
Goodies.
But so I just got some little trophies, and we have 12 of them. Unfortunately, I didn't get 16, but we have 12 of them, and we are going to have is it what you call it, a scavenger hunt, right? Probably.
Yes. Scavenger hunt.
And Jordan is putting that together, but I made the little I put the extra vinyl on the little trophies, so they say 6, number 1, number 2, number through 16 or 12, and so you guys can win those, and then I think we have other smaller things after that if you go and do our scavenger hunt.
Goodies and fun stuff. Awesome. So yeah, make sure to come by the booth early so you can get a list of the stuff that you're looking for, and then hopefully you'll get a trophy at the end of it. So, let's see. So from that, let's move on to the Cosmere Thing of the Week. All right, Jordan, what do we have this week for the Cosmere Thing of the Week?
Well, what we have is a wonderful image by Brian Kolb. It's his rendition of The Girl Who Looked Up, which he went
Very
ham on the concept of the long flowing red scarf. But I just really liked it. It feels feels good. I don't know. I just like the art. I found it when I was looking for potential thumbnails and stuff, but found that, and yeah. I'm sorry, I'm fighting off more coughing. I don't know what's going on with my throat.
No worries.
It started right as we streamed, and it's great.
So no, I really love this depiction because this is actually how I pictured her scarves. It's very specifically called out that it's 2 very long twin tails that trail behind her, and it's all very flowy and blowy and wonderful. So, but yeah, it's great. So we'll have a link to Brian Kolb's website in the show notes. So definitely check out his other stuff as well. So yeah, moving on to Sanderson news. So a couple weeks ago, the day after our last stream, Brandon did a showcase of some of the new swag and merchandise that's going to be for sale at Dragonsteel, where I realized, I'm going to have much less money at the end of this convention than I originally expected, because wow, there's some good stuff. So there's something for each of the of the secret projects. There's Tress's teacup, which that's going to sell out so fast. There's a plush Mervin the Wizard. It's Mervin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's like
it's like
Merlin,
Merlin,
but not
discount Merlin.
Yeah. So there's a plush Mervin the Wizard that's absolutely adorable and needs to be good friends with my Doomslug plushie, so they'll be hanging together.
And there's also, not to cut you off, Bill, but there's also even more things too that they've added to the
really?
There'll definitely be even more. But I'm just talking about specifically the showcase.
Okay.
I'm going to be poor at the end of this.
Well, no, after you finish these things, there's something else I needed.
Okay,
to
sure.
Too, that
yeah, absolutely.
Seen, so.
Then of course there's the ramen bowl. I need this ramen bowl.
It says Noodle Girl or whatever on there too.
Yeah, it's the Noodle Girl. It's just amazing. And then there's new pens for everything. Like there's just so much good stuff that's going to be at the convention, and a lot of it's going to also go directly to Dragonsteel's store afterwards. Amy, what were you talking about?
So, Taylor actually in the chat mentioned it too, but they made all of the slugs.
All of the Tanexes?
So all the Tanexes, all the ones that you have the stickers of from the sticker pack, they have them as plush ones, which I swear they were in my brain or something, or there was just like the same juice running around, because I was going to try and make a Mervin just for kicks and maybe sell a few. They made a Mervin. I was going to try and make some extra Doom Slugs, of like Boom Slug or whatever else like that. They made all the slugs, and I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't actually do it, because then I would have been like, well, I can't sell these now because it's going to look like copyright infringement.
To be fair, Amy, you're trying to compete with Kara.
Oh, I know.
That's just a losing battle. So,
but it was just like, it's crazy. I'm like, both things that I contemplated doing. Yeah, okay, we're just gonna stop trying right now.
You still got your dice.
I still got my dice. It's fine. I had grandiose plans, and then none of them happened, and that's okay.
No worries. You're kind of busy anyway.
So. Yeah, I stretch myself too thin all the time. So.
Also, for Halloween this year, Brandon was very specifically Jack Black dressed as Bowser. And Emily was Peach, of course.
Oh yeah.
And there are some amazing pictures of and even videos, I believe, of him doing the Peaches song. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Definitely go check it out. It's like all over his social media and YouTube and wonderful things. Fun. So definitely we're checking that out. As of a week ago, Stormlight 5 is at 86%. So he is coming around the home stretch. He said he's got about a month and a half left to write. And so he's he's got, I think he said, about 50,000 words to do. So, but it's Brandon. He'll make it work. He said he's actually probably going to finish early, and then he's going to immediately jump into revisions. So,
yeah,
which is what we like to see. And then 45,000 words until he hits his target goal. Skyward Legacy is at 52%. Also, there was a stream on Halloween where Brandon answered a lot of fan questions. He opened fan mail and presents and wonderful, wonderful things. So, and that's all available on his YouTube channel. So definitely go check that out. It's under the live tab. So don't look through the videos tab. Go to the live tab and it'll be in there. Let's see. On December 19th, which is Brandon's birthday and also Kola's Head Munching Day, there will be a Yumi spoiler stream for the first half of it, and then the second half will probably be more general Cosmere spoiler discussion. There are going to be even more new shirts and pins that he showcased in the video at Dragonsteel. There's a shirt that has like a little representation of all the different books in the Cosmere and stuff. It's a great little compilation shirt. Very, very cool. And I like that it's subtle enough that like people will see it, and if you're familiar with the Cosmere, you'll know what it is, and if you're not, you'll be like, "Ooh, cool stuff." Cool.
Yeah.
And so
it's like
those are the kinds I love.
Yeah, I want like just a plain Dragonsteel shirt, like not a stylized version of the logo, just their normal logo.
And
just walk out, and if they know, they know.
Yeah. Well, they do have those jackets, but they're like $80. So
I think they're 65, but
were
still,
they? Okay.
yeah,
That's
still.
that's
I mean,
a
it's a
lot of money.
leather jacket.
No, it's not
Yeah.
leather. It's like a Gore-Tex or something.
I was looking earlier today. I thought it said leather.
Maybe that's a new one. I'm talking about what they had
Maybe.
last year.
No.
But yeah.
I gotta see.
Also at Dragonsteel, Dan is going to be hosting an exhibition game from the Stormlight RPG. There's going to be donations to charity that will allow you to kind of tweak the game. Apparently, Dan is good at setting stuff up where you can mess with the game as it will happen. That's not going to be streamed, but apparently the charity Magic the Gathering draft is going to be streamed, and that will allow people to digitally chime in and donate money and mess with Brandon's deck and basically Hunger Games him to failure.
Because
So-
apparently that happened last year. I think that he just like, I lost every game.
Yeah, he said y'all made me lose every single game I was in. The Sunlit Man is fully shipped. The store orders are now shipping, so the people who ordered it from the store after the fact, but all of the Kickstarter versions are shipped. The Stormlight boxes are now shipping. I was fortunate enough to actually get mine on the 1st of November, which is kind of cool. And this is a really, really good box. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who doesn't want to get spoiled, but it's a really cool one. I've already used one or two of the things in it, so it's pretty cool. Let's see. Thursday, November 17th, as we've mentioned in past episodes, they're doing the digital Defiant release event at Barnes & Noble. You can check that out at barnesandnoble.com. And this month is the beginning of Sandersonian, Brandon's version of NaNoWriMo, where he is going to be posting his word count on the r/Sanderson subreddit. So you can follow along what he's doing. He said he'll probably finish up what he's writing again with Stormlight 5 and jump into revisions. So if you ever want to beat Brandon's writing numbers in Sandersonian, this is the year to do it. So
good luck.
It's gonna be busy.
No, Brandon said that he's not going to hit his normal
because
goal this year because he's going to finish the book.
And he's going to finish the book, and there's also going to be revision time and the convention and
yeah. So
Yeah.
he
Still
said
fighting Brandon.
he said it's actually very possible this year to beat him because so much of his time, rather than just writing, is going to be revision, which doesn't count towards his word count. So
yeah.
All right. Shall we move into the discussion of The Girl Who Looked Up?
Sure.
Okay, so The Girl Who Looked Up. First off, this is a story. We actually see two versions of this story told. One in, I believe it's chapter 25 of Oathbringer, and one in chapter 82. The first version is the version that Shallan told, and the second is the version that Hoid told. Because Shallan saw this story when she was a child. There was a children's performing troupe that came through and told her the story, and she took memories of it, but wasn't able to recreate from those memories because, of course, those were all destroyed when the ship she was on was turned into water.
No, the just getting that's because it's her just going around the tower and just her discovering, hey, wait, this is a theater.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they're just walking around Earthiru trying to figure it out. But
well, especially because Earthiru, in most ways, each room just seems very, very nondescript. It's just an empty chamber.
Yeah.
And this is a room that she comes into and she recognizes, oh, the form of this room is very, very different. I recognize this.
Yeah. But my favorite part is she then has to try to explain to Pattern what a play is. And the idea, a group lie. She's like, oh, you'd love it. It's like a lie everyone participates in. A group lie?
Ooh.
But I actually, like, just conceptually, it makes sense because they're really trying to understand, like, what are the patterns of, like, this is what the cryptics are. It's not that they're lie spread. It's that
right.
They're actually truth spread. Like, because that's the thing that they actually, but in order to understand truth, you have to understand lies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a play is a wonderful example of of this concept of why they find humans fascinating, because a play is an abstraction that tries to get at some inherent truth through a lie, which conceptually to them, like, that's got to be so juicy.
Well, it's also a lie that everyone recognizes as a lie, but they still tell it, they still participate in it, they still encourage it.
They're still fully invested in that lie.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it's because everyone knows they're being lied to, and so is it really a lie? No, it's right now we're looking at this abstraction of human existence, which is, what all stories are. There's some abstraction of some experience or some truth or some story. And it's just very interesting to see him so fascinated by this. And I love that Shalon like, as soon as she realizes it, she's like, oh, he would love this.
Mm-hmm.
And she then starts to use up some pretty precious stormlight to put it on. It's pretty cool.
And
I realized that I only read the second one. I didn't read the first one.
Oh, you read the
again.
Hoid version.
I read the Hoid version, and so I'm like quickly skimming the first one because I'm like, dang it, I didn't look close enough.
So
Or
they're very, very,
reminding
very
myself.
similar between the two. The
Mhm.
ending is what's different.
Yeah, because I'd forgotten, because you were talking about the art and saying, oh, it's like really specific about the red scarf, and I'm like, I don't remember that being
Mhm.
super specific, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, I forgot to read the first one again.
No
So,
worries at all.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that because she doesn't have the memories from the original production, she's instead pulling the cast of characters from all of the drawings that she's made around Urithiru and in the war camps, and just all the people that she's gathered in this new collection. So, for example, when she climbs up into a tree, the boy is
Lopin.
And it says it had the face of one of the bridgemen, a Herdazian, which is like, that's Lopin. Okay.
That's Lopin.
Yeah. Well, and like the washwoman that she was talking to was Paloma, or is it Paloma?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Palona or Paloma?
Oh goodness.
Now that you ask, I can't remember. I think it's Paloma.
I have to
I
know
will
now.
skim really fast.
But
Palona.
Oh, Palona. Okay. I was wrong. But yeah. So let's just sort of go over the basic story. So in the story, there's this girl who lives in a town that off in the distance, there's this enormous wall, like that blocks out everything. And she looks up and she sees it and she thinks, why is there a wall? And so she goes and asks these different people who, of course, in Shalon's version have faces of people that we recognize. And they all say, there's a wall. It's protecting us. Don't ask about it. Just leave it be. You'll get, if you go over the wall, you'll die. And that everybody's just very content with that. Honestly, it reminds me very much of Plato's cave allegory. Are you all familiar with Plato's cave?
No, I'm not actually.
Okay. So in Plato's cave, he posits a situation where there are a bunch of people who are chained up together in a cave. They're all chained in such a way that they can't turn their heads, they can't move around, they can't see each other or even themselves. They're just looking at a blank wall in front of them. Behind them is the wall that they're chained to, and it's like a half wall. And there's a fire on the other side of it. And people behind them are moving like basically little puppets and stuff around in front of the fire. Mm-hmm. And so all that these people who are chained up are seeing is the shadows that are made by the puppets. And they've been chained in this situation for their entire lives, to the point where this is their reality. This is all they know. He then posits that one of the people who are chained up is unchained and taken into the sunlight. And, there's pain, there's brightness, there's sensory overload, to the point where the person, if set free immediately, would panic and rush back to where they've been because it's familiar, it's safe, the pain is gone, there's nothing there. But then you take somebody all the way out and you allow them to adjust. Gradually, they'll see only shadows and then see everything clearly, to the point where they look around and they have all of this sensory input that they'd be missing before.
Mm-hmm.
And would essentially say, wow, this is superior. And then they would go back to the cave, and immediately, because their eyes haven't adjusted, they'd be blind. And they would tell the people that they're with about everything that they've just seen. The people would see them, think they're crazy, and recognize that they're blind now and think that they've been harmed, to the point such that if somebody were to come and try and take one of them outside of the cave, they would fight tooth and nail and possibly even try and kill the person trying to take them out of the cave because they're going to be harmed. This is dangerous.
They're so conditioned to want to be there. Yeah.
So anyway, this part of the story reminded me very much of Plato's cave, because everybody's just like, there's a wall. We don't look over the wall. Don't go over there. You'll die. It's dangerous. No.
It also kind of makes me think of M. Night Shyamalan's The Village a little bit too.
A little bit, yeah. Of course, in this story, the girl says, well, if the wall is meant to keep things out, that must mean that within the wall, we're safe. So I'm going to go over to the wall and nothing should attack me. And then she gets to the wall and is able to climb up to the top, and she looks out and sees on the other side of the wall steps going down, which means that the steps are there. It's easy to cross into the wall, which means the barrier's there to keep her and her people on this side of the wall.
Mm-hmm. And like there were spikes that she was climbing up for days and days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and she was using her scarf as a hammock, and
like all those.
I love these little touches.
Yeah.
I really like you bringing up Plato here, just because I do believe there's a lot of. I think Brandon's clearly examined Plato. Like the cognitive realm is, I think, very, obviously my opinion, but I think it's very clearly based on his theory of forms that Plato had. This whole idea of there's like this idea of a thing that's like the ideal thing, and everything else is sort of based off of that. And you can sort of see how the cognitive realm is, mirrors
Flows
that
out
pretty
of that,
well.
yeah.
The other thing, someone once asked Brandon where the idea for the girl who looked up came, and he was talking about how there has to be these world myths and such, and he thought, but he didn't say it was 100%. He's like, he thinks Pandora's box might be the influence that,
which becomes more
it.
clear. Which becomes more clear when we look at Hoid's version of the story.
Yeah,
because Shallan sees this and is, basically falls into despair because, she's telling this story and then just, thinks we're kept into here because we are the things to be feared. We are the problem. We are the monsters.
Well, and it's also mixing with the fact that she's using all these people, and it's reminding her of what she's lost. And she looks out into the crowd and she realizes the people in the crowd are her family, but they're drawn with less detail because they are the ones she hasn't drawn recently. And it just starts to overwhelm her because it's getting too close to the part of her that she's protecting with her lies.
Yeah.
So later on, she is in a dark room and with Wit, and they're having a conversation, and he says, have you, let me tell you the story about the girl who looked up.
Well, I think we need to focus before that.
Go for it.
Because it's right after she's been passing out all this food to get to the Cult of Moments' veil, and she just found out that her passing out of food had gotten people killed because
especially this
it
kid.
It made them targets.
Yeah, and so she is in the throes of despair because she's suddenly realizing Vale doesn't actually have this expertise because Vale is just me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of these things where suddenly she's being confronted really hard with the truth. And that's for her the thing that's really difficult because she escapes into these other personas.
Well, and she's telling herself other lies, because she's at the point where she's thinking everything I touch turns to ash. I destroy everything. People who come in contact with me, their lives are ruined for it. That's
like
her
at the
thought.
beginning. At the
That's
beginning
how
of the chapter, she's scrolling through all these faces of all these people that have died.
Yeah.
Or things that died.
Like,
she's doom scrolling.
Yeah. I mean, and that's how depression works. Like she's not necessarily Kaladin, of course, is our face of depression in the books, and Shallan is known for DID. But this is how these mental disorders work: is they lie to us. They make things seem different than they are, and can break people with them. And she's starting to succumb to this. And this is where Hoid, in my opinion, particularly in his interactions with Shallan, is just magical. I love the way he interacts with these people when they're in these throes of depression and fear and just despair. Especially, and I think it's absolutely fascinating coming from Hoid, because Hoid has been through the ringer himself. He and
we don't know what, but we know he's been through stuff.
A lot. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and he's been around for a long time, and just the weight of those years, even, I feel like could send you into a type of madness.
Well, I mean, he has to unload memories into breaths just to prevent himself from going insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much.
But it's sort of the same concept, though, as someone who has been through it is the kind of person who can help you to get through it. Hoid, or Wit, or whatever you want to call him, is a light to a lot of characters. Like, he's but far from a perfect character, and we know he has ulterior motives. We know something's going on, but in his interactions with these people who need a light, he's wonderful. I say that as someone who struggled with depression and anxiety for a long time. So, just the way he handles it is just beautiful. And, so so I love the way that he interacts with Shallan, where she forms the stormlight and then he starts to manipulate it. Like, we see him trying to, he blows up these facsimiles that last for just a second and then collapse. And he's like, could you help out here? And
do you mind?
But then all she does is give them form, and then he starts spinning them. And it's just such a beautiful representation of this storyteller.
I think it's also important just because he's trying to get her out of the cycle. And so he's getting her to do something. And a lot of times when someone is dooming, getting them to actually do something is a good way to sort of break the sequence.
Yep.
And I appreciate... Yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
I appreciated that when he's talking to her and stuff, and she's sitting here going, well, I messed up. I did this terrible thing. And he's like, well, maybe. Perhaps you did. But then as she starts to give him more openings, he's kind of like, but you did the best you could.
I like that he doesn't gloss over the fact. I like that he acknowledges, sure, you made a mistake. Rather than you didn't do anything wrong, he's saying, you messed up. That doesn't mean that defines who you are. That doesn't mean, like, you made a mistake. You're not a mistake.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
It also sort of echoes in Words of Radiance when Kaladin, he's going to rescue Elhokar and he's not sure why. Because he knows logically he has every right to hate this man, but he's doing it, and he finally realizes to himself he tries. Like he's
Mhm.
trying. And that's the thing that right now Shalon's only looking at results, and results matter. Like, don't
Mhm.
minimize results. But she's also highly discounting the fact that she was trying to do a good thing.
Mhm.
And sometimes, I mean, sometimes when you try and do good things, bad things happen. The
Yep.
road to hell is paved with good intentions. But,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you stop trying. It doesn't mean to borrow the other story, it doesn't mean you stop running the race.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it's interesting, because they go through the same sort of series of events, although he's tweaking things and shining a different lens on the story. And then when the girl gets to the top of the wall, she looks over and he says, "What does she, what does she see?" And Shalon says she sees steps because we're the monsters. And that's where he just silently walks over and embraces her.
Mhm.
And he's just, because he sees what she has been putting herself through. And he's just like, "You're not a monster." Like,
Yeah,
just
I'm at the quote. It says,
Mhm.
"Oh, child, the world is monstrous at times, and there are those who would have you believe that you are terrible by association."
And I love, I can't remember the exact wording. You're probably right there, where he says, "The world, you
The
you
world
are
is
not
monstrous at
poor.
times.
Yes, you are not poor for your association with it. It is better because of your
You are not worse for your
association."
association with the world, but it is better for its association with you.
That's the wording. I love that line. Because she has been dragged through the mud.
And she's the one dragging herself mostly through the
Yes.
mud.
Oh,
By
yeah.
her, yeah.
Because it's not Adolin, it's not Kaladin. Both of them hold her up. They think very highly of her.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But the
And
things that she's been through, the things that she has done, the things she's been forced to do, of course she starts thinking of herself as a monster. I mean, the poor girl had to kill both of her parents, both times in self-defense.
Yeah.
With her father, it was proactive self-defense, but it was defense of the family.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
defense
Well,
of
it was- I
herself
mean,
and her siblings.
well, it combined with the grief because he defended her
Mhm.
and let his own name be dragged through the mud to
Yeah.
protect her. Now the problem is that also drove him insane.
Yes.
And he
To
let it
cruelty
twist.
and everything else.
Yeah, let him twist him
Mhm.
up. And it's one of these things where, it's a cycle, and it's difficult.
Mhm.
And sometimes people do difficult things, and it's like, what's the right thing to do? And it's like, well, this isn't black and white. This isn't, because
And
you go down the list of everyone in that scenario. If we're
Mhm.
right about Shalon's mother being Chanarach, we know she's suffering from some sort of insanity caused by magic. So
Mhm.
she's not fully at fault for what she does. She's responsible, but she's not fully at fault. We
Right.
see what her father does. He tried to protect the family, but in doing so, he sort of destroyed himself and twisted himself up and became a very, he wasn't acting properly as a father.
He was
Well,
broken.
and he was destroying the family in his attempts to protect it.
Yeah. And so, but it's like, is he evil? And it's like, I wouldn't say evil. But again, he's responsible.
Mhm.
And Shalon, she killed both her parents, both in a form of self-defense, but it's there.
And she was so young when it happened that it just
Yeah.
shapes her view of herself, of the world, of everything.
When you go to her brothers, Helleran left and abandoned the family.
Mhm.
Her other brothers, one turned to alcohol, one turned to,
Violence.
harming animals. You just start going through. It's like
One turned to
everyone is just
gambling, yeah.
coping with all this difficulty.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the point, and what I love about it is, at no point are we trying to pass judgment on these people. It's
Mhm.
these are just people. This
Mhm.
is just what tough situations sometimes do to people.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's not about, making sure everything's amazing. It's about learning to cope with the hard parts of life. And I mean, it's skipping ahead a bit, but it's whole, accept that the pain is, what is it? Accept that the pain is there, but not that you deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's the hard part. Is
Well, I
because
mean, what?
we're trying to find logic in it.
Well, I mean, what's the theme of this book? What's the most important step a man can take? The next one. It's like you've been through the mud. Keep going.
Yep.
It does, like you said, it doesn't mean that you deserve this. Yes, it's there. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something to deserve this. That you are something that deserves this. And then, so Shallan's talking about the steps and the indication that we're the monsters. And Hoid points out, he says, on the other side of the wall was God's light. Now, this is one of the most blatantly religiously charged terms that Brandon has used, because typically they refer to Adonalsium, they refer to honor, they refer to Tanavast. This is the first time he's used God as a proper noun. Now, we don't need to go into a lot of that because that's not what we're here for. But I feel like there is significance to his use of that term, because it's just.
What I was thinking about it was, I think part of it, I was considering that fact. Part of me wonders if it's an issue with his language translation, where he's telling the story to multiple different people, and it, whether with Alethi you might say the Almighty, you might say the passions to someone else, or and so if you just say God's light, what everyone worships as God is sort of different on this world. And so I sort of took it as he's using a more generic term so that people will put onto it what they find divine,
what applies for them. And honestly, I feel like Brandon doing it kind of allows the reader to do the same.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that, and I thought it was kind of there's weird moments with Hoid that sometimes blend with Brandon, just due to the nature of, he's a storyteller. What's Brandon? A storyteller.
Well, I mean, Hoid is clearly, and Brandon, I think, has even admitted this, Brandon's sort of version and interpretation of the fool that shows up in a lot of Shakespearean works, who is sort of the outside observer who sees things, gives exposition and stuff like that. And that's what Hoid is doing here as well. Hoid is serving as Brandon's analog within the setting.
But no, it's a very interesting thing. Well, and I also love, because it's right before this, before it starts getting, heavy, where he's, says to her, it's like, no, it's a story. It doesn't have a point. And it's, as soon as art has use, it's no longer art. And, he does something, I think it's light weaving, but it looks akin to forgery with a fork. And then he's like, look, and he's like, sure, this is very artistic, but as soon as it, like, the part of it that moves past usefulness is the art, and it's the useful thing as a tool. And she gives, what I love is she calls him on it later on, and he's like, well, I didn't say I was perfect.
Well, he said, like I said, we all fail, even me. And I love that. But again, he talks to her, and he talks about how the girl brings the light back and uses it to illuminate this area that's been completely dark. That's the other difference that between her version and Hoid's version, is he starts it off very, very, very dark. He says it needs to be much darker because there was no light, and the people behind the wall have been stumbling around with no light. And he talks to Shallan, and he says, would you rather not have the knowledge and the experiences that you have? And he's like, because it's made you who you are. And she says, no, I wouldn't want to give up the knowledge that I have, which again is the return to Plato's cave, because the person who has been outside of the cave no longer wishes to return to the cave because he's looked around and he says, oh, this is better. It's harsher. It's harder to understand. It's more complex, but it's superior. And so I don't want to go back. But he would want to bring the others who have been in there with them out of the light, and they're fighting him on it. And, Shallan says, I wouldn't want to go back to when I didn't know these things. Yeah. Which is a very interesting thing, because a lot of times when you've gone through these traumatic experiences, there is a strong desire to lose the trauma that comes with traumatic experiences, but at the same time, there's also potential of sacrificing the wisdom and knowledge that is gained through going through these hard things.
Yeah. One, it's interesting because it's, I mean, again, going to the themes of this book, you cannot have my pain. This is very much that, where it's like you have to accept the pain that comes with actually learning things and actually growing. Yeah. And it's like everything seems so simple when you're younger, and then it's like I would kill for to have the confidence in my opinions I had as a teenager. Oh yeah. And it's why adults uniformly find teenagers to just be so annoying, because they're so cocksure and just like, you are so stupid. You have no clue how dumb you are right now. And it's like, even if the kid's right, they're right for the wrong reasons, usually.
And we can see it because we've been there and we're like, oh, I remember being there, and oh no, you're not thinking about all these other things.
It's so fascinating because when you're young and in that age, the adults always tell you exactly what we're talking about right now, and you always just sort of roll your eyes. I remember doing it myself, roll your eyes and saying, no, I know what's going on. And then looking back 20 years later, you're just like, I was a moron.
My goodness, my 9-year-old is already super cocksure about stuff, and I'm like, dude, no. He'll try and argue with me, and I'm like, oh, can we not, please? You are how old? Let's go over this again. So,
on that note, I think that's a good place to take a break, but we will definitely come back in a little bit and continue this conversation. Yes. So we'll see y'all in a bit. And we're back. There's a lot going on here. So next thing that of interest, Jordan, you mentioned this during the break, is let's talk a little bit about what Hoid is doing, because there's some shenanigans going on with the magic systems here. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Shallan is giving form to the stories, but then Hoid is basically sort of stepping in and piloting everything. To the point where even after he tells the stories, Shallan creates 2 copies of herself, and he starts messing with them, and like one of them is just different. Like she gives them both the same memories, but one of them collapses on the floor and the other one stands strong and faces them. And it's just like, it's the same person, but this one is willing to stand up.
This one forgives herself.
Yes, she forgives herself.
So there's some like the fact that she makes 2 different forms of herself, gives them the same memories, and they act differently. My first thought, and I don't think this is what it is, but it reminds me a lot of Vin burning the 11th metal with the Lord Ruler.
Absolutely.
Where she sees 2 versions of him. Now, this is 2 possible futures. So it might be, so it's obviously, it's not, because the 11th metal was gold and adium, which let you see their past.
Meladium, yeah. Yeah. But this, it's more like when she burns gold. Yeah. And she sees 2 versions of herself. That's what Shallan's doing. She sees 2 versions of herself.
Yeah. And at this point in the story, Hoid is not a light weaver. Well, not a
Rasharan light weaver.
Yeah, not a Rasharan. He hasn't bonded a cryptic yet.
Which is why when he starts telling the story, you see him blowing up dust and stuff like that, and showing these representations, but not fully formed.
But we know he's a full Mistborn at this point.
Yes.
And so part of me wonders if he's doing. 'Cause look, we know he has a lot of different magic systems going on, and part of me wonders if he's doing some shenanigans with his whatever his sand bending stuff is, his version of light weaving, along with burning gold somehow, and using his ability of connection that he or not connection, a fortune he has, to sort of peer into possible futures a little bit, because he doesn't know why he has to go places, but he knows where he's supposed to go. So he's doing something with fortune.
I think he's in this situation, he's doing stuff with connection.
Yeah.
I think that's how he's able to manipulate her.
Well, he has to have some. He has to have some
her.
level of connection. Period. Like that. That much is.
Yeah.
But how is he looking? How is he showing her the version of herself that could stand up to this? Because that's not connection at that point. That's that, like we said, more akin to the gold, where it's the.
Well, I feel like all he really did was just sort of insert this feeling of forgiveness into it.
Well,
and then the rest of it
he can manipulate her emotions.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he doing some emotional allomancy if we're going to say that he's potentially pulling on Mistborn powers?
Except that I feel like she gets this, feels the sense of forgiveness from the facsimile of herself. Like I feel like somehow what he's done is he's connected with it and just tugged on it just a little bit and inserted that feeling of forgiveness, and then just let the rest of it play out.
Yeah. I think if he was doing any emotional allomancy, it's very, very slight, but I don't know that he is.
Yeah. I would be shocked if he wasn't using emotional allomancy, just because I think this is a trait he and Breeze share, in that they don't view, I don't think he'd view it too much different as the way he manipulates people by telling a story, because he would do things subtly. He's not like Kelsier, who's unpracticed with it and uses it more like a sledgehammer. Yeah. Also, just the number of years it's been since he got that bead, you can well bet he's practiced. And at this point, he's been an emotional allomancer far longer than Breeze ever was.
Well, we don't know exactly how long ago he.
Yeah.
Well, we know that it happened in. He swallowed. We see him swallow it in, or at least Kelsier sees him swallow it on the other side after he fights Hoid.
I don't think he swallows it. I don't think he swallows it in Secret History.
I'm fairly certain he does.
He takes it with him at least.
He takes it with him. I don't think he swallows it there.
I don't know why he would delay though. Like why would you keep something around like Lerasium and risk losing it? What's the benefit?
I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head.
But even if we say he waits 10 years, 15 years, 50 years, there's still a 300-year gap between the end of Era 1 and Era 2. And
I'm just saying we haven't been given any specific evidence that it happened though, or when it happened. So I think that's, we're straying a bit too far into speculation at that point.
Well, it's the point is, I don't think he would worry too much about lightly tugging on people's emotions for storytelling.
Well, we've seen him use it on Shallan when she was younger.
Yeah.
At the fair.
Yeah, to get her attention.
Yeah.
Probably rioting curiosity or something like that.
It's been long enough. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, it was in Words of Radiance.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. I wouldn't be shocked to know that he's using some emotional allomancy here to help her out. That's also because that was one of the cooler things I liked in Era 2 was the fact that there were, emotional allomancer therapists.
Soothing
Yeah,
parlors.
soothing parlors and stuff.
Well, but there was also actual like the therapists that are actually trying to help people.
Right.
It was a one-off line. And I liked that idea of a therapist who can push things down in a way like to help people sequence break and maybe think calmly, or or to push out some anxiety to get them to think. Now, you can't rely on it too much, because then it'd be the same as, someone who abuses alcohol to deaden yourself. But given just how much Hoid is, he's always where he needs to be, trying to help out the people he needs to help out. It's one of those things where I could see him lightly tugging on things to help her actually consider things. And I wonder if he needs to do stuff like that to somehow interact with these two different versions of herself.
See, with the emotional element, I don't know that that necessarily has anything to do with what he's doing right here. I don't think he would necessarily have any qualms about using it. I just don't know that emotional elemency fits what's happening at this moment with the two Shalans. I think it has more to do with connection and that sort of.
What does he have that could manipulate connection, though?
We don't know all of his magics.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, who knows what residuals there are from him being a Dawn Shard for so long?
Yeah. There's actually not many. I can't think of too many magics other than being a bondsmith that really mess with connection too much.
Furukami.
Yeah. But that's only one power, and I've only really seen it used one way, and that's for language.
But I feel like that there's other. That's just one way that we've seen it. I think it goes
it's one of those.
That.
It's just connection is so hard to manipulate because it's so fundamental in Brandon's universe. But the I think specifically showing Shallan a different version of herself has something to do with showing fortune or showing the future a little bit, which we know he has. We do know he has something that does that because he's commented on it. Hence his whole. I think it was Dalinar he was talking to, where he's like, "Don't," or maybe it was Shallan. Don't trust people who claim to see the future, or something like that. And they're like, "But you can see the future." As I said, don't trust people who can who claim they can see the future.
Yeah.
Which is always one of the fun parts about Hoid, is he's perfectly willing to embrace his hypocrisy.
Yes.
I mean, he does it in this whole thing where he's like, it's like, wait a minute, that story had a point to it. And it's like, oh, not perfect. Come on. Yeah. And so I don't know. There's something. It's one of those things, and it's the brilliance of how Brandon really likes to get in, explain what's going on with the rules eventually, but he's left himself enough leeway with Hoid to where whereas everyone else it feels they're a little less magical in nature because it's explained, and once you explain something, it does pull a little bit of magic out of it and become a little more science. Hoid still has a lot of magic to him because we don't quite know what he's doing. It's like, I feel like I can see the edges of what you're doing, but I don't really know what's going on in the middle.
But that still works within Sanderson's first law. Because he doesn't use it to solve the big problems.
No, not at all. And that's why I like it. It's very similar to his explanation of why Gandalf follows all the rules, even though we never get an explanation of what he can do, how he can do it. But Gandalf never uses his magic to solve anything that isn't also equally unexplained and unsolvable by the
other sources,
more mortal races. It's like, because really the only thing we really see him, use full on magic against, if my memory serves me correct, are Saruman and the Balrog.
He also lights pine cones on fire in The Hobbit and throws them at wolves.
Yeah, which
That's
one of
fire.
those. It's also one of those things where you're just like you've over leveled for the job, and you're just sort of trying to do things to make it a challenge.
I don't know. These scenes just hit hard, and I really like how gentle Wit is with Shallan.
It's really, again, it's just something that Brandon has done very well with Wit / Hoid, is the way he interacts with different people is very different, because the way he interacts with Kaladin is very different than the way he interacts with Shallan. Kaladin, a lot of times he comes along and he's just like, you need a kick in the butt, get up, get going. This is how it works. Stand up, soldier. This is how you go. This is what you need to do. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where he gives utter compassion to Kaladin. I mean, "You will be warm again" is one of the most emotional lines I've ever read in my life. And it's just, but he tailors his performance to his audience.
Yeah, but I think part of it's also because the one of the big differences between Kaladin's troubles and Shallan's troubles is Kaladin internalizes his external problems. And what Kaladin needs is something that gets him moving and understanding, this is just the way things are. It's like everything isn't your fault. Shallan, on the other hand, her issues are that she views herself as worthless because of things that she's done. Yeah. And so she needs to hear, she needs the Robin Williams, "It's not your fault" speech. And I mean, just that line. It's like, accept that the pain is real, but not that you deserve it. And whereas the thing he says to Kaladin, it's because Kaladin doesn't believe he deserves it. Kaladin just thinks it's hopeless. And so he wants to give up, and you have to show him it's not hopeless. Keep going.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It's also, it goes to our theory of that we've talked about before about, I think, he had a daughter or something.
Yeah. And I think is there a canon reference to his daughter? I feel like there was.
There's a canon reference to you can't bring her back.
That's even canon-ish.
Yeah.
That's not full canon. That it's in the Traveler.
That's what I thought. I was like, is it in Traveler? Because that's ish. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the closest we get, but I think it would make a lot of sense. The other thing that just has me thinking is, Hoid's mentioned he's always where he needs to be, but he doesn't necessarily know what he's supposed to do. And you look throughout Stormlight Archive, and it's like, who are the 3 people he's had the most conversations with that we see? Dalinar, Shallan, and Kaladin.
Yep.
And helping with Kaladin and Shallan in particular, he's helping them work through their emotional baggage. With Dalinar, it's more getting him to, like, pointing him in the right direction so he sort of sees the field that he's playing on. Because Dalinar, he doesn't know what Dalinar's problems are, because his stuff is tied very directly to cultivation.
Right.
Yeah.
And he probably doesn't want to tug on that string too much.
He's like, that's scary. It's a dragon over there.
Let's not wake the dragon, shall we?
Well, he literally refers to her as Slammer.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
And so it's like, there's clearly some history there.
Yeah.
And I get the opinion that she is not fond of him, which, to be fair,
seems
he says a lot of people
she's not fond of me.
Was it literally that?
Well, because like there's talk about another dragon or something. I can't remember exactly what it is. Just like, there is one. He's talking about people as old as him. He's like, there is one on this planet, but she's not really fond of me. So
yeah.
No, but and so it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, why are these the three people that he needs to help the most with? And with Kaladin and Dalinar, I think it's very clear why they're important in the story, but just because of what they do directly. Shallan, on the other hand, you get the impression, because she's done some impressive stuff. Look, she found Theru. She, she went to Kolinar with them and
She
helped
took
with the
care of
resistance.
the Shana and kicked her out.
Yeah, so it's not like she's done anything unremarkable, but you just get the impression that whatever it is that like her big thing is, we haven't seen it yet, and we don't really quite know what it is yet. Whereas with Kaladin, it's like, okay, I feel like I understand the vector he's on, especially in book 5, where he's going to be going with Zeth and going to Shinovar, and they're going to try and make a Shar Sane again. With Dalinar, we can see that he's got his grand duel that he has with Odium.
Todium.
Yeah. But Shallan, it's like, I have a feeling you have some big thing you have to do, but I don't know quite what it is yet.
Right. We've seen one of her big things, which was her reabsorption of Veil.
Yeah.
In the 4th book. But Radiant still exists. And I think in this case, because she's accepted Veil, who was there to protect her from the things that she's done, Radiant is there to do the things that she doesn't believe she's worthy to do, in my opinion.
I can see
and
that.
So I think so. It's basically
actually, the way you said that, it's sort of past and future.
Kind of. I was thinking more of the left hand and right hand. The left hand is the assassin, the secret keeper, and the right hand is the
honorable
the warrior,
whatever.
the honor.
Yeah.
But like Shallan is just sort of the blank innocent slate. Veil is the experienced sort of shady one who protects her from the horrible things that she's had to do. And Radiant kind of is protecting her from the responsibilities of being a Radiant.
Yeah.
The founder of another order of Radiance.
Which would feel like a lot, because I mean, Shallan's really not that old still. It's a lot.
No, she's very young.
No. Well, that's the thing. Everyone except for Dalinar and Navani are actually really young for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like Kaladin, he's like 1 year older than Shallan, right?
No, he's a little bit more.
It was a little longer, but even still,
it's pretty close. Like it's like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but the point is, they're all pretty young.
Yeah,
and
Yasna is probably the
30s,
oldest of the current crop.
Yeah, I think she's in her 30s.
Late. Yeah, I think she's in her 30s, late 20s or early 30s.
She's clearly old enough that people find it odd she's not married in that society. So you'd guess somewhere in the 30s. Especially in a culture where you do marry for political reasons, because that does tend to push it a bit younger.
Yeah,
but she's so powerful and so smart that she could sort of just defy all the traditions and still be a force of nature.
And she has no qualms. Just like, yep, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Deal with it. And now she's
what people are doing nowadays. They're dealing with things.
Yep.
No, but I don't know. It's one of those, just looking at this story in particular, it's not often we tend to get two versions of a story within Brandon's books. It's interesting. I'm trying to think of if there is another one.
Another what?
Another version of where he tells the same story twice. Yeah, from different perspectives. Well, not perspectives, but from two different people.
I don't recall another one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he didn't tell the story twice. Shallan told the story the first time, and then he told it.
Yeah, but I mean, later. Brandon as a narrative device.
Okay.
Yeah, is a narrative device in a story. just because telling it again, that was something I liked. It's a bit hand wavy, so Brandon doesn't have to tell the story literally twice. But where she's like, let's just skip to the part, like, because the morals what matters anyway. He's like, there's no morals to this.
That's fair. YK in chat mentioned the prologue for the Stormlight Archive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that does do the same thing where every time we get a different perspective, it completely changes things.
No, it's a very cool device.
But yeah, when it comes to Hoid's stories, though, he's only done it the one time. I suppose on a little bit, Kaladin tells the story to Elhokar a little bit when he's trying to rescue him out of the palace in Words of Radiance, because he says like Fleet never kept running. Meanwhile, Elhokar is drunk as a skunk, and he's like, okay. He's trying to follow Kaladin's train of thought, and he's completely lost. And it's like, sure, you're not a great king, and you mess things up all the stormy time, but you're like Fleet, you keep running. Like, thank you.
How do I take this? Yeah.
He's like, are you going to murder me? I still don't know.
What is going on?
But yeah.
I did like that immediately after the scene with Wit, she goes back and Adolin's just super cute with her too. And he's all like,
I also love how
I was so worried.
Not surprised she is that she can't, like, she looks out and he's just gone. She's like, yeah, that figures.
Yeah, that tracks. That's what he does. But I just love that Adolin's like, oh man, I was worried about you. And he's like, oh wait, I love the outfit. That's really sharp, and she's all like, oh gosh, yeah. It's like, there we go. That's my boy Adolin right there, like, commenting on the fashion.
Maybe if we tweaked it a little bit here, change the coloring here. It's just like, stop trying.
It's not quite as fitted as it should be. He's like, but it's super. I like the combo. He's just like, yeah. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
That's one of my favorite moments of Oathbreaker is when Adolin's like, we're going to go to the person I trust the most in the city. And Kaladin is trying to figure out who it could be. It's my tailor. And Kaladin's just sitting here. He's a freaking fop. Like, he just does not understand this man.
He's just enthusiastic about the things he likes, okay?
Yes. And
we're all nerds about something.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I love about it, because this is, at this point, they trust each other. This isn't the way it was early on, but it's still just him just shaking his head like, this is who I'm dealing with.
This is what I got. Okay, fine. Oh, and then Kaladin shows up with an army. That's the other thing that happens afterwards. Like, yeah, tracks. That's Kaladin. He's going to bring the army.
And things happen.
Yep.
He's probably the stormy leader of them or something.
Yeah.
But that's the part. Right. Like, as far as that trio goes, I love how all three of them view the other one as like just some sort of weirdo. But like weirdo in this hyper competent way that they actually do respect it, but at the same time they're just like, why are you the way that you are? You're
so, could you just
I wonder if Brandon took some inspiration for that from the Wheel of Time, because the three Ta'veren, the three main guys, it's so funny because every single one of them, there will be an internalized moment where they'll be like, and it's always when they're dealing with women. It's like, if this person was here, he'd understand how to handle this. He's always so good with women, and all of them are thinking about it each other. Just like, I never know how to behave in this sort of situation.
They're such a ladies' man, and I'm sitting here reading it, going, none of you are ladies' men. Oh my goodness, really? Oh,
but it's
just why unreliable narrators are fun.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, we should probably start wrapping up. So,
good idea.
Just get some final thoughts ready, and we'll start putting together the outro. So, for our listeners, we have made it through our backlog of listener questions. So, send in your questions, your comments, your suggestions, all of that stuff, topics of discussion. We'd love to hear it. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us your ideas for topics you'd like us to discuss during the show. And while you're at it, we would, again, love to hear how you think we're doing. If you've got interesting theories about what's going on in the Cosmere, about any of the individual books, or just the general Cosmere as a whole, we'd love to hear it as well. You can send all questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and hopefully we'll have that as part of the show, talk about it after our main discussion. You can also reach us at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. We do have our own personal projects that we work on outside of the podcast. So, Jordan, why don't you start us off and tell us what you've got going on over there?
When I'm not basking in the glory of the Texas Rangers winning the World Series, and I want it on record.
And even when you are.
Yeah. I want it on record. Every day I've woken up and I then remember they won it and I smile a little bit. But no, other than that, you can find me on YouTube, Twitch, Kick under the name Splice Stream. Rhymes with ice cream. You'll like it. We're doing Amiibo stuff. We're doing a lot of XCOM stuff. If you go, you could potentially become one of my soldiers and I could potentially get you killed. Don't worry about it. It's a lot of fun, except when it's not. But
it's happened to me a few times.
Look, it's a feature, not a bug.
Sure. So where is that?
Just Twitch, Kick, YouTube under the name Splice Stream. You'll find me.
Cool. Awesome. And Amy, how about you? What's going on over in your world?
I am done making dice. It's great. I have 3 giant boxes of dice over there, and they're full.
3 giant boxes.
Yes, 3. Anyway, so
not 4, not 5,
but 3. My Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. My Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay. My TikTok is @coincidencecosplay, and my website is www.coincidencecosplay.com. And I am determined to make that thing not sad. If somebody wants to point me at something that helped me, that would be wonderful. Anyway, but I'm done with my children's Halloween costumes because Halloween is past. I'm done making the dice, so now I am trying to finish up my design costume. I'm determined to do her justice. Hopefully, it's still probably not going to be as good as I want, but that's okay. I don't have to be perfect. And I'm still debating if I'm going to do Tress or if I'm going to do Shalon. So let us.
I vote for whichever one's easier.
Probably Tress, because then I have both hands. I mean, Shalon, I can open up my safe hand and whatever and be scandalous, but it's just hard. Scandalous.
It's not a Stormlight year. It's the release of Defiant this year. So.
Oh, I know. So that's why I'm like, but yeah. But that's what I'm doing. It's probably just prepping, and I'm gonna have a ramen bowl with fake ramen stuff in it with resin. So that's gonna be my part of my design costume.
Very nice.
So yep.
And then as for me, I've got another podcast with my friend Dylan where we talk about board games. The show is called The Innkeeper's Table, and we post new episodes every other Friday. So our episode for last week is still actually a little bit late because this last weekend was TimpCon, which is a local board game convention. And so we're going to do a little bit of a post-mortem review of just kind of some of the things that went on at the convention for next episode. So you should definitely check that out. Again, that's called The Innkeeper's Table. For those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you cannot become a patron just yet, we'd love it if you would let your friends know about the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. And if you want to toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we would absolutely love that. You can also head over to streamelements.com/Cosmere Studies to buy merchandise with our logo and branding.
Which would be really cool right before Dragonsteel, just saying.
It's true. We would love that. All right, guys, final thoughts on The Girl Who Looked Up.
It's a tearjerker, even more than I thought it would be. When I was trying to read lines, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to start crying in the middle again. So,
Hoid stories tend to cut onions pretty hard.
Oh yes, the onion ninjas follow Hoid around.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's how he escaped without her noticing. The onion ninjas whisk him away.
I wouldn't be so. It's like suddenly there's just this waft of foul odor as he disappears.
Oh man.
No, I love the Hoid stories, the witch stories. One of these days, I would love for Brandon and Isaac to get that collection, that illustrated collection of Hoid stories out someday. I would love to have that on my shelf.
So pretty.
Maybe after there's a few more witch stories to put in.
Yes, after 5 maybe.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing that they, in researching this, I had forgotten that they had planned on doing some children's books
Yeah,
based on
that's-
some of Hoid's stories.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about it. But I can't remember. Brandon said they might still be happening. There apparently was some sort of disagreement with like the original publisher idea or something, but they're still on the table. I'd have to go back and find the conversation where he was saying it, which I'd love that because those are really good.
Yeah. No, that'd be such a cool, different kind of collaboration between Brandon and Isaac. So,
And hey, Isaac now has experience in the children's
illustrated
He
story
does.
market.
Yeah.
Yep.
Monsters don't wear underpants.
All right.
Monster
Well,
isn't wrong.
in addition to the live episode of the show that stream on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under the profile at Cosmere Studies. For our next episode in 2 weeks, we are going to be recording at Dragonsteel 2023. We'll be holding a Cosmere character fantasy draft, so if you're at Dragonsteel, you should definitely come to the recording. The winning team will be selected by the live audience as well as by our listeners, who will vote via a link that we're going to post on our social media afterwards. Unfortunately, we won't be able to stream, so you'll only be able to join us live if you're at Dragonsteel in 2 weeks on Monday, November 20th, 2023. I don't recall the exact time, but it's in the schedule, so definitely check that out.
And it's in
8 p.m.
the
8 p.m. in the Yolan room. But we will post the video and audio versions the following Wednesday at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening. And remember, there's always another secret.